Thank you. All right, welcome everybody. Happy holidays. The December 15th Downtown Advisory Board meeting. So thanks everybody for being here. It looks like we have everyone present. So that is our welcome and a call to order. So let's take a second just to have it for the record. Myself, Josh Kay, here. Kirk Sun, here. Alan Pollock, here. Charles Weathers, here. Quandary Robertson, here. Gordon Truitt, here. Chrissy Birch, here. Roy McManus, here. Chrissy, did I get that right? Okay. Also the approval of our agenda for today's meeting. It's for a motion to approve that. On. Okay. If there's no further discussion, everybody in favor of approving the agenda for today's meeting, say aye. Those not, nay. Motion carries. And last bit of business here before a very exciting public comment period is the approval of our minutes from our October 27th meeting. All right, unless there's no further discussion, all those in favor of approving minutes from October 27th meeting, say aye. Those not, nay. Motion carries. Okay, well, we asked for special guest to come to today's meeting. Here we have him. We've got Derek, and he's going to share some really exciting progress and news from Salem Main Street Association. And I don't want to steal any of the thunder, but what I can say and definitely give both my thumbs up to is the organization and effort that Salem Main Street's been doing to help our downtown. And we're going to hear about really exciting catalyst that they just got done doing. So Derek, welcome.
And then I did bring some pictures. I wasn't sure I put in the email. I got on my computer if we wanted to share some up here. I wasn't sure if we wanted that or not. I don't know if there's a way to share it. Okay. So I'll put my laptop up for you guys later. You guys can kind of thumb through them. So my name is Derek Gilbert. I'm proud to be on the Salem Main Street Association board. And what I heard today is we've had a fantastic Christmas event. And I want to preface everything, but it was the most fun event I think I've ever been a part of because the energy and the spirit. I mean, so many people helped with this event. I'm kind of representing Jim, Vu, and Angie Vaughn today because the three of us kind of led the thing. And so it started as a vision years ago with PJ and Jim, and we really got excited about it about 12 months ago and said let's really impact downtown for the town, but also for small business, because obviously small business has been really adversely affected through COVID and some of our problems downtown. And so we really wanted to make downtown Salem feel like it would be for Christmas. And so there's some pictures that we found of Liberty Street back in the late 60s that there used to be Christmas trees and garlands over every intersection on Liberty Street, and we want to get back there. But the first year, we really want to make sure it was done well and done right. And so this was a bit. So you guys see the Christmas lights around downtown. It was kind of fun watching a $30,000 Christmas light order filming it. And now you guys see the fruits of that labor. So we did all the lights downtown, and then we did the parade. And it was a somewhat short parade this year. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But the rough estimates that we've heard 7,000 to 8,000 people came downtown Salem to see that parade. I mean, to be frank, we were going to be happy with 2,000 and watching people come down and the momentum was incredibly powerful. So some of the rough statistics that we wanted to share is that there was roughly $50,000 raised for private donation. There was some partnership with the city on this for the permitting fees. There was roughly $10,000, or excuse me, $15,000. We're estimating 500 volunteer hours got put into this. We had several light meeting days, and like I said, we've been meeting weekly. Chrissy's been a part of some of these meetings. We've been meeting every week since February, trying to make this happen. So, and this is just the entry to it. I can't thank Cherie enough for this. She was the most tremendous asset and partner with the city that we could ask for. A lot of this stuff would not have happened without her guidance and resources. So I know she hates public recognition, but I'm embarrassed the heck out of her. And want to make eye contact with me. But I mean, hours, emails, calls. I mean, she was absolutely instrumental in the success of this event. So where we'd like to go from here, because obviously But as we've done surveys with Salem Main Street, the biggest issues that we consistently get back are homelessness and parking. And so we're really trying to leverage this in some other projects that we're working on. But for now, next year, we've already started meeting for next year. We'd like to expand the parade route, just because now that people have seen it, we're not trying to steal Kaiser Life. That is not the intent here. We're trying to partner with them and provide more things downtown Salem. And so we're estimating just for the parade next year, we're gonna be needing $60,000. The permits this year that council was awesome and helped us with those were roughly 15. But if we stretch the route out like the original vision for it, and trying to get some cars out, like we would have ideally liked to have had cars off of the parade route, but the numbers to clear per occupancy down there is pretty significant. So we're gonna be optimistic and aim for that next year. For safety reasons, there was a few close calls I heard about after the fact, just because of the cars still being on the street. We're estimating $30,000 we get costs just for permits this year. And as we expand and try and make it special, hopefully you guys all get to see Buddy the Elf out there. I mean, the energy that guy brought, Corey Jenkins, was absolutely magical. If you're part of the fun, it was just fantastic. So those are the things that we're working on right now, fresh off the success. I'll put my laptop up and you guys can pass it around because Mayor Hoy was able to get a picture with Santa Claus on top flag looking back over Court Street, and you don't see paper. It's all people. Like that to me was probably one of the coolest moments is as the old Marion County Fire Chief's car brought Santa Claus to the parade. They said it was like the Pied Piper. People just filled the streets and followed. And once he turned on the Court Street, you know, we're trying to get Santa on the truck. I turn around and this mob of people just crashed in. And everybody was happy and everybody was excited. So, and then you look around because obviously it's kind of a Clark Griswold. It was fun to do all the Christmas stuff. If you look at the restaurants were packed. I mean, and we're trying to build some intentional plans now. It's a better group of retailers in that next year, making it more of an entire day event. Like you said, obviously the restaurants we're really trying to make it because I mean, Jim beats the math. Right? You spend $1 local retailer, roughly 60% comes right back in the community versus more corporate establishments. So we're really trying to figure out how to maximize that for downtown, for the culture of Salem. But for the first year, like I said, I'm just a humble representative because people put in a lot of time in this thing, but we were just overwhelmed with the results from it. So,
Any questions for Derek?
Derek, I just have a suggestion.
Please.
Ugly sweater run.
Yeah.
Coordinate with Sue and John Gallagher in advance of the parade. You know, I think it'll be hilarious.
That's a good one. Because some of the things we're talking about, you guys saw, we did have hire some Victorian carolers to come around and sing, which again provided kind of that nostalgic, like Christmas story type feel. We talked about bringing them down earlier next year and having them there. One of the things we're working on right now is we partnered with the YMCA and some of their classes creating Christmas ornaments, and we're kind of doing a hide and seek with Christmas ornaments, channeling kind of like the Lincoln City glass balls that will go hide on the beach. So there's some marketing went up for that. This Saturday, Buddy's workshop is going to be at Dolce Mama's. You can kind of create some Buddy breakfast and things like that. So, you know, it's not just the singular events of the lights and the parade. We're trying to create momentum, you know, as early as Thanksgiving to get this thing through. If you're keeping notes, we've already established the day for next year. Will be that same small business Saturday. You know, we looked at a lot of days, but the most consistent feedback we've heard is such a phenomenal kickoff for the holidays for downtown Salem. We didn't want to impede on Kaiser Lights or Snowball on things. You know, the marching bands were pretty impactful, so I'll make sure those are part of it next year. And then the biggest hope is that we can expand it out. You know, we work with a lot of city agencies to make this happen. Charities have voiced some concern about impeding their routes, so we're going to work with them and figure out routes that will work. Because I'm anticipating a significant increase now that people see them. If we really want to keep it that everybody from families can walk in it all the way out through big floats, like we want to figure out a way to have floats next year. I think the only constructive feedback we were consistently is relatively short. And like I said, we just didn't know what we were going to get. And so next year we're going to be far more intentional about that for safety concerns, for logistics, but mostly we want everybody to be a part of it and really trying to be this magic that downtown Salem's experiencing forward.
Amazing. Yeah, well done. And we're really excited to hear more as you keep up the momentum, not just with you know, the efforts for the parade for next year, but everything that Main Street's doing. We know you guys have really built up something.
Well, this is obviously the big bulk of it. I'm relatively new to the organization, but I've been there, I think, a year and a half, maybe. And so it was really important to figure out the projects that would work with Main Street, projects that haven't. I mean, really, that's went through a period of flux after TJ had his medical event a couple of years ago, because he was chair of the board at that time. And so we were a little bit in disarray, but we wanted to use this to show Salem that this is a viable organization. We want to have impact. We want to be really powerful and expand out to help downtown. And so this was kind of the project we really poured in to show people that. The other thing we're looking at, because again, the most consistent thing that we're getting feedback on is parking. And so we're really trying to figure out how to revitalize the parking garage. You know, Sheree and I talked about that at length. There's some dollar amounts attached to that, but we want to make sure that there's the misconception that downtown Salem is just not safe. And obviously there are some legitimate concerns with that, but I think anybody that really spends time down here knows that they're somewhat exaggerated in some folks. And so how do we make it more inviting, more things to come down to? And so, you know, the parking garage is a huge opportunity to that. And there's been a lot of talk about the parking tax and things like that, bringing back paid parking downtown. And we want to be able to show that there's a cost of parking downtown, but that money goes specifically somewhere, right? Like it makes things happen. Here's this project, here's the idea, these concepts, so that people will not just go, well, that's not one more reason to go downtown. It's like, okay, here's an investment on these dollars that we can really show them. And this was kind of the triggering event for that. And so we're really trying to come up with it to keep them in, but not just Christmas, with some other events to really make downtown an inviting place, a welcoming place. I'm tired of watching people buy Eugene and Portland for the fun stuff to do. Let's do that here. Because, I mean, and I will even admit, as someone who's been in Salem now since 2006, I spent more time downtown than I normally do for this, and we're more like, you know, downtown is vibrant, it's fighting. Like the fact that it's still here after the last 2 years of the diversity is a testament to the small businesses downtown. So let's celebrate, let's grow it, let's get people from out south, out more generated that just don't come downtown, and really celebrate that. So we're excited.
Well, I know all the downtown businesses and us around the table really appreciate what you and the street are doing. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much.
I will put a shameless plug. All that stuff's got to come down. January 7th, we're going to start taking it down. We want to leave it up through New Year's to keep that ambiance up. But it's going to take a lot of people hours to get that stuff back down. Because we want to be respectful of the investment we made. Matt Brozovich, Christmas Light guys, kind of walked us through some things. The biggest thing was drying them out, so we're going to take them down. We did get some space over in the Cos building, thanks to Jennifer Martin, the building over there. Santa Claus Workshop is what we started living to call it, to store all that stuff. So January 7th, we're going to bring it all in. We're going to hang it up so it can dry out for about a week and then store it. But you know, it's always fun to put stuff up. It's never fun to take stuff down. So we'll be doing some social media after Christmas. Like, we didn't want to make the ask publicly for that now because we just got it up. But I will voice that in this room that we'll be looking for people to help take things down January 7th and then back in. So appreciate the opportunity to be here. You know, we're really excited to partner with Dan on these things. Work really well together. Like I said, Josh was great working with Jim, and I will yet again embarrass Sheree for all behind the scenes work that she does.
And then for all those listening, if there are listeners, how do people get in touch with Salem Main Street Association?
Thank you. So SalemMainStreetAssociation.org is our website. That's where you find all the events. There's a downtown calendar of things that are going on, ways to get involved with us, whether it's as a board member, 50 members, or just singular events like the White Takedown on the 7th. So SalemMainStreetAssociation.org. You can also find us on Facebook, and there's contacts to us to different.
Thank you, Derek. Absolutely. And you're welcome to take off if you'd like. I know you probably got lunch to things to do or hang out with us.
I've never been one of these things. So
So we've got some awesome information reports coming. Thank you. Okay, let's move forward to agenda item number 5, action items, starting up with the election of the 2023 DAB chairman and vice chairman. So we need to vote.
Yeah, those of us here last time were all kind of laughing because we did this at the last meeting because Lyndon Chioka was vice, and council person, and you were not available. So we had an emergency just in case, and Charles. Again, I told you it was a fight between and Charles. No, you don't want, it doesn't get better than that when everybody wants to do it. So now you guys all get to take that last conversation and apply it to right now, but we're gonna start with the chair, and if there's nominations for chair.
I nominate Josh Kay, the chair of the Downtown Advisory Board.
I am okay with doing this for one more year. Thank you, Charles.
Someone has a second.
Yeah.
Second, we got 3 seconds, it's a sixth.
Yeah, we've got a second and a sixth. So is that now a singular vote? Okay, all those in favor of Josh Kay being DAB chairman for the 2023 calendar year, there's no further discussion. Say aye. And those not in favor, nay, or thumbs down. Motion carries. All right, you guys are stuck with me for another year. I promise it won't be terrible. And vice chairman. That was already dealt with at the last meeting. Do we need to ratify
this
it?
year, for this year, so Charles is your current vice chair for this year, so now you need to vote for
Yeah.
vice chair for next year.
Work hard for next.
Well, I would vote that Charles Weathers would be the vice chairman for next year because we're all about continuity and efficiency of that.
It was well such go last year. Scandal.
In this week's episode of that,
Right.
I did hear a second from Kirk.
Yeah. Look, that's it. How can I stand up?
Well, is there any further discussion on that? Okay, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor of Charles Weathers serving as the 2023 Downtown Advisory Board Vice Chairman, say aye. Aye. And those not in favor, thumbs down or nay. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Charles. That's exciting. Thank you. Okay, action item number 2. We need approval of the 2023-2024 Riverfront Downtown Urban Renewal Area and Parking Fund budget.
Meetings. So
Meetings.
those of you that are in order to meet deadline requirements for having the budgets for this board completed, we need to have 2 meetings. So the board has requested that they get a budget, they have an opportunity for discussion. If there's something that they want revised or if they have questions, then the budget manager brings it back the next meeting and they take action on it. And then they get second budget, they discuss it, and then at the next meeting, they approve it. In the past, it was the board would get it and have to approve it on the same meeting, and that was not what really the board wanted. They wanted a chance to discuss it. They needed revisions. They didn't really want to have it just done right then. So that's kind of the system we have in place. But in order to do that and meet the budget deadlines, it requires 2 meetings. So even though I put the 23rd here, that would be your regular meeting date. But I just thought for planning purposes, you might want to see this in advance. That way we're just ready to go.
So it's February 9th, that is a new meeting.
That's an additional meeting.
Discuss that, okay.
And the March 9th.
Is there any way to wrap in our 23rd meeting into the 9th?
It wouldn't give you, it wouldn't give the budget person a chance to bring you back any changes. So Riverfront would be the first one. So on February 19th, we could draft Riverfront budget. And then if you had changes or questions, on the 23rd, it's going to come back to you. And on that same day, you're going to get the parking fund budget for the first time. And then on March 9th, you would get the parking budget.
Sounds okay to me.
So there's two. One.
Okay. Any discussion on that? That makes a lot of sense.
I guess what I could add is that we could then forfeit the regular meeting in March. So it shows, so you would have that second meeting, your regular meeting.
Yeah, what spring break is like that?
It's so we would have our next meeting.
Well, we can make that determination at our February meeting if we want to skip the March meeting.
You can't skip the March 9th, but if you want to skip the
The-
regularly scheduled.
yes. Everybody else clear on that? Okay. So I'd ask for a motion that we approve these meeting times.
February 9th.
Okay, there's no further discussion. All those in favor of approving the February 9th and March 9th meeting cover the downtown rural area and parking fund budget, say aye. Aye. All those not in favor, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. All right, information reports, starting with the urban renewal area project updates from no other than Tori Banford.
Send me up here.
Welcome, Tori.
Bear with me. I have visual aids, so I have to.
Story setting up on the point. Board positions, of course, Josh, you needed.
Sure, just wanted to say. I think I paid attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Tori's gonna be going over the West Salem urban renewal area projects, as well as the West Salem Urban Land Institute summary, and lastly, gonna be finishing with the Mill Creek urban renewal area. All really high profile things, so Tori, take it away.
Have to ignore the text at the top. Okay, happy to be here. Tori Banford. I work with Shree, working there with Shree. I've been here for about 13 years. I manage projects in the West Salem area, grant program in the North Gateway area, and projects in Southeast Salem, Mill Creek Corporate Center, and the Salem Business Campus. Happy to be here today. First time being in a group meeting with Zoom going, so it's been an interesting adjustment. Happy to share some information on projects in West Salem and Southeast Salem. I have questions toward the end, but if you have something in particular as I'm going along, feel free to interrupt me. So quickly on the area, I see it all the way there far, but a lot of people on the West Salem side refer to kind of the urban renewal area as like the flats. As you know, there's a lot of topography over there. So as you get closer to the Willamette, it's down by the Willamette, obviously to the south and the east. But you have a lot of the hills start to happen basically on the, the fringes of the west side and the north side of the this area. There were a lot of studies that went into the establishment of where this area was located. If you're familiar with West Salem, Edgewater Street is kind of the Main Street corridor. People there will refer to things as historic. Really, there's only one historic building. West Salem used to be its own city. So they have a old city hall building that's been updated over the years. Varying businesses and offices in that building. But it's really the only historic structure that's there, but it is a nice area to walk. It's a long corridor that kind of has that Main Street build. They do put decorations up, but I was envious of all the effort that went into, I mean, downtown looked amazing, all the lights there. So nice work. Along this corridor of Edgewater, they have the downtown style lights, the acorn lights that have some. Over the seasons, they'll have different displays on those lights. So they do what they can to incorporate that street pedestrian feel through that area. Still quite a bit of traffic goes through there. If you exit Highway 22 through there, trying to get to Wallace, Edgewater is that route that takes you to Patterson, ultimately to Wallace. Those are kind of the routes to there. And as far as other districts, there's a lot of residential areas, so you see those higher concentration of lot in the northwest section there. So that's a piece of it. We do have it help as part of our urban renewal plan incorporate additional housing types and multifamily. We've seen some of that interest, but not really anything coming in. So that's something we anticipate probably seeing over the years. There's quite a bit of demand for multifamily housing throughout the city of Salem. We're starting to see a lot of that type of development, obviously along Wallace, also in the hills of the Salem. And there is some multifamily near Wallace Creek Park, but we just haven't seen it lots consolidated or high density development residential areas. And then along Patterson and to the east, there's a lot of old industrial buildings, industrial uses. It's been interesting to see over time as you get to the south in that industrial district. There's a lot of old processors, Rain Sweet, see from Wallace Road, Oregon Fruit, relocated probably about 5 years back to Patronum. So we've seen a lot of that migration of Rain Sweets in a different part of town too. So there's aging, Rain Sweet honestly blighted buildings in that area. We went through as one of the projects that we completed, some cleanup project. There were so many different mixed zones through there and overlay zones, it's complicated. So to help alleviate some of that burden of redevelopment, cleaned it up, created a lot more mixed use to allow for, developers saw an opportunity, commercial lots to do some downtown style development. Our Salem, as you guys probably tracked it over the years of about 3 years of shaping it and ultimately adoption. One of the things that changed with that effort is the industrial district has now changed as well to mixed use. There's a continued use provision, meaning those operators can continue to operate. They have some limitations on how much they can expand. But again, it's one of those things with the long-term interest of the comprehensive plan change. We're talking 10, 20, 30 years down the road. If there's market forces, dictate that, one of these businesses wants to be closer to, say, 5, as we've seen in other situations, we'll be here as an economic development team to help them make that change. But now the groundwork is in place where that can be redeveloped. If there's a real estate developer or there's just a shift in the market where that's an opportunity. That's where we have a lot of our larger lots. So that whole industrial district. Then another area to the east of Wallace is kind of been referred to as like the town center because there's so much there. There's a branch of the City of Salem Library out there, West Salem Library, grocery options, recreation, access to Wallace Spring Park, Industry Bridge, obviously downtown. So there's a lot there, and Wallace Road is really kind of a barrier to that west to east. I'll address that later. So some of the things when this, so 90s, there were a lot of community interest in cementing what they felt as part of West Salem. Some of the really things that are critical and important about it, but also they realized there were some challenges. So the 90s studies through that time period and the community outreach formed the urban renewal area in 2001. It's a fairly newer urban renewal area, so it's been around since then. And with the mix of different type of zones, uses, a lot of the projects reflect that too. So our urban renewal plans are online, so also inclined, hop on there and you can take a look at goals, objectives, and projects. And some of these things include removing blighted properties, rebuilding building stock, making it, encouraging private investment, connecting to natural resources and protecting natural resources. There's a lot of great parks in the area, whether you're on the west side, south side, or east side, you have pretty good access to parks. So just want to enhance that and where possible, improve the connectivity. Similar to the downtown advisory board, there's a West Salem Reform Advisory Board. They meet the first Wednesday of every month. They're still on Zoom, as most, I think a lot of the boards and commissions still today. Still meet on Zoom. So we have, just like we're broadcasting here, want to catch up with old West Salem Redevelopment Advisory Board meetings. There are YouTube channels as well. Somewhat similar to the downtown as well, we have a matching grant program. It's referred to as the redevelopment grant program. It's a 20% match. It's geared at new building construction, building addition, manufacturing equipment. So in this case, Truett, now it's Baxter's. They had a building expansion, some new production line and things at this time. So just like you see downtown, wherever there's a grant investment, sign the consent. That's what that was. As far as new projects are concerned, grant activities in the area now, there's an older industrial building that covered asbestos. So in an effort to repurpose that building, we're helping finance the asbestos cleanup so it can be reused. Then another one is West Salem Machinery, manufacturing really heavy duty recycling equipment. It has to be like the materials that come in are trucked in, and just the pieces of the equipment get trucked out to where it's an international company, and then they get assembled at that location. For the manufacturer in West Salem, they've been automating more things over the years, so there've been multiple investments there. The latest one is building expansion as well as with investment. So as far as the grants, there's probably around an average of 3 grants per year typically, and the average grant amounts around 150,000. And the average private investment with that is around 10. So it's pretty good. And again, just like it is downtown, these projects will probably happen over time, but the grant program is really an incentive to encourage that to happen sooner. So that we've definitely seen that. Patterson has been really in the corridor where some of that grant investment has resulted in new office buildings, Gigi Brewery repurposing of industrial spaces over there. So and new clinics and things like that. So hopefully we'll continue to see that investment, private investment. As far as current projects go, so this is some of that old, food processing. This is formerly Oregon Fruit, their location. So, with these food, the type of businesses, they'll exhaust the building, use until it's no longer suits their needs. And so that's something that we're hope to see remedied here in the not too distant future. So what you're looking at on the left side is current state of what is 2nd Street. This used to be an old so Union Street Railroad Bridge would connect over here. There's a rail spur that connected to the industrial businesses here, bring in supplies and take out whatever was produced at locations. That has been taken out. City controls this right away. There's some things that we're working out as well, but what it doesn't have is this street. So developers acquire these approved locations, one of their burdens to overcome would be building street improvement. So the Urban Renewal Agency, the advisory board, everyone saw this as a Obviously, it's a public benefit, improving connectivity to Wallace through this area. So if we could do that as a public investment, hopefully we see the private investment come in and that would be the burden that could dedicate that resource, the financial resource to buildings instead. So as a result, over the last year, we did studies initially, so it's been like 3 or 4 years in the making, but really we made a lot of progress over the last year where we should be completely designed the street improvement. The street improvement goes from Rosemont all the way to Wallace. We've already done a section from Rosemont to Earth, so this is the final kind of piece for Earth all the way to Wallace. What I show here is just how that is anticipated to look once it goes through. So it's really bringing in some downtown elements. You don't see it here, but we'll have like on Edgewater, like we have downtown. We'll have the ornamental lights where you can put on some. We'll have what that will connect festive seasonal things to those lights. Community wanted to see this Edgewater district extended, and so Second Street is at an angle, so you follow it from Rosemont all the way through Wallace, and it's a good, just kind of cements that Edgewater Second Street district is proven. And there are the developer that has acquired these sites, has been working with us, and we hope to see buildings that have been here and dilapidated for decades, hopefully be reconverted to other uses, engage the street. It's one thing to be unfortunate, in my opinion. I think most would probably feel that way. Slide the side of the right of the screen where it's all improved, and then the same buildings that you have. So hopefully they'll follow pretty closely after, or at the same time that we do the street with the changes to buildings. Yeah.
So you're showing a half street, the idea, or
No, it'll be a full street. No, so this is just a rendering from the architect. It'll be the full street. Same that you have on the side here. We'll have bulb outs to center downtown, make it more pedestrian friendly. Anticipate lighter traffic through here. When we're framing this project, there's been a desire to have like Festival Street, so at nights, shut off the corridor, like a section of the street, and this would really kind of help serve that. We'll have a lot of that infrastructure in place as far as like electrical hookups and things like that, and it'll be a less traveled street. So.
So that's your big project.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a pretty significant project. But took a year to design, about $1 million to design it. We anticipated to start construction in April. It'll run the full season. Cost money. It's a $9 million project. This is a big project. Again, it's one of those things where we've been working closely with the development community. There are only 2 developers that control all these properties, so that's a good thing. They're the one developer that's acquired most of the properties. So I meant to say that there are 4 old buildings here that are now engaged as a result of this investment. So hopefully those will change. And then there's 8 properties that could be like lot consolidation, total rework of buildings. Hopefully those things will happen as we get to where we start construction. So it's been interesting as I've interacted with some of the old people that just like in downtown in West Salem. They're pretty proud of their community, and when I'm interacting with some of the older people that have seen the building sitting like that for a long time, it's like I'll believe when I see it. Especially Rain Sweet, I've been there a long time without anything there. So even if that were just demolished, when it's not, it'll be something. I mean, ultimately, it'd be nice to have total investment in the building there, but just to have something that's not getting more weather. Nice work.
Want me to have the crew across the street?
Yeah, just going bridge. Another project that we're working on in that same area. So when you look to the north of that purple area, that's Second Street. So Wallace is on your right, and it goes again all the way down to Girth. Another opportunity that we saw working with the developer, and internally we talked with Public Works, is that purple section of First Street. And you see it in its current condition on the left side. That First Street section used to go through where Goodwill is now. So the majority of the streets are been vacated. So it's an easier process for Public Works, for the city, since it's a city resource, to do the vacation. So we're taking the opportunity to, we're just starting the process. It's ultimately up to city council to determine, based on the conditions and current conditions of what the conditions of the vacation are for them to decide. But we're framing kind of the, the recommendation, the argument, if you will, that it doesn't make sense if developers on both sides of this First Street were to come in and have to build First Street almost to Second Street standard, and it doesn't go anywhere. So we're just seeing it, we saw it as an opportunity to work with the developer, move that as a constraint to what could happen in that section. So that's another piece.
So why doesn't it stop there, not all like go to Second Street vacation?
Vacate second.
Like, because there's the part that comes off of Second Street,
Yeah.
right? That, why is that one not part of the vacation too?
So that, when we're looking at it now, we'll probably have a cul-de-sac there. So there's directly south of that, it's called actually called the Avenue. That really little piece of that stub that connects to Second Street. It connects to an existing building there. I think the developers talk to them and say, hey, you're interested in selling, but bought everything else. I think they just want to retain it. So it provides backdoor access. So like the owners, it's public, they park on Edgewater Street. So, employees, delivery trucks, things like that, access to back door. So the plan would be, one of the conditions to the vacation would be to have a cul-de-sac. It's hard to look at. So we also had an Urban Land Institute technical assistance panel that recently met. It was a 3-month, like an intensive visioning exercise over June through August of this last year. You saw this as an opportunity with our Salem, the zone changes we've already done, the developer acquiring multiple sites and the Second Street improvement investment. We thought, let's see the technical assistance panel, the TAP, which is an acronym. They only pick, I don't know how many, that's like 10 communities per year to do these intensive studies. And so we put in a request and we got selected from the communities. So about 12 professionals from the Northwest came out, met with 15 stakeholders, communities. So they met with city councilors, employees, members, businesses, residents, staff. They interviewed, walked around toward the area. Then they met together, and some of their backgrounds are in engineering, real estate, architecture. And so they sat together and they threw ideas that, what could happen like near term, long term, with the investments that the city is making and the changes to a lot of these industrial, like I said, industrial properties being shifting over the next 10, 20 years. We've seen south, like what happened in the north as well. What will that look like for the area? Some of the other near term, more realistic. Of course, whenever you talk to anyone over there, it's nice to have improved connectivity, be able to get east and west. Walsh Road is a significant area, a lot of traffic through there, high speeds, multiple lanes, it's a challenge. So that was one of the things that, of course, the community's always felt that way, but this group felt that was important, connectivity. Some of the longer term things that might be more challenging. As far as connection too, I mentioned east and west connectivity. They want to get to downtown Salem as well. There's this separation, and I think spend time with West Salem, get the build separation, broader Salem. So now, what can you do to help overcome that? Purposes of downtown, how do you reach the downtown of Salem? You're traveling the bridges, be an obstacle depending on time of day, but it can be a more pleasant experience if have better connection to the street road bridge or something to get to downtown. So some of the longer term, it'll require a lot of financing, policy, priorities, things like that. That they came up with were to remove those obstacles that create this idea that West St. Louis feels like a separate community from St. Louis, and improve that connection. Improve access to the Willamette as a resource. Right now, it's you have Highway 22. It's a pretty significant barrier to the Willamette. Else you can get there, make your way to Wall Spring Park. But it'd be nice if you had that whole linear area on the Edgewater to get access. So one of the proposals they had was, you start to see some shifts in denser communities. Nato Parkway in Portland is changing a bit over time. They suggest have it as a highway, ODOT. Again, where do you put the traffic? It's a good question. Again, that's one of those policy funding and how do you reroute? I don't know, even know how many trips go through. It's a lot. Truck trips and back and forth from work. So that's one of their suggestions. Prioritize that and get access to. You'd still have traffic. What you could do is slow down, narrow it, lanes. Have it like a highway interstate kind of thing, because like 22 ultimately moves through around downtown and out to go to Eastern Oregon. But you don't know it's there. It's Highway 22 is right there. So it's just something that urbanized Highway 22. It's one of their suggestions. Similar to the bridge, the recording bridge into Island Ground Park, you have a similar connection. They refer to that as kind of the heart of Salem, something that can draw northeast, south, and west all together. So again, pretty fun, like a pretty significant investment, something like that to happen. Then they show a connection east and west, connecting to the Union Street Road Bridge. And we've looked at different options for that. We looked at probably 7 years ago undercrossing, where you had like a grade separated. You go to Kaiser Station. There's one in North Gateway area. Same one. That's if anyone wants to move away from a undercrossing, that's the one they reference because it's scary. But there is a pretty, there's a modern one at the Kaiser Station, and that's one that I refer to. I guess that's a scary one. We built a different. We did renderings. It was we have like a 50 million maximum density in this area. We used about 20, so we have like 30 million left. This project with the improvement of Second Street and the undercrossing was so just you basically throw all your resources at one project. So it's not something that the whole area could handle on its own. So it would require like a bond, streets bridge bond, federal investment. And it's one of those things too, where it's like so much investment in one. If more people went through there, or some people were more vital, that would make sense, but to the amount of back people through there would doesn't make much sense. So what could happen is, and it's controversial too, like an overcrossing for bike and ped. There are places where it's done right. I'm just in Texas where it's not overcrossing. I took pictures. Nobody uses it. So if nobody's using it, people will be dwelling up there, tenting, it'll just be something that we make won't be $30 million, it'll be $20 million. And it turns out to be something that the community doesn't feel like it's safe connection to get through there if there's less traffic. Different things will happen there. Less likely to be used in that case. So a lot of study would have to go into that policy, so the agency would have to decide. But these are just some of those things. We knew it was an important connection. We'd love to get West Salem across so they could engage Wall Spring Park and get to downtown Salem. I don't think everyone is open to that idea. It's just, how do you tackle Walls Road? That's what they do.
It's on the right hand side of the grocery stuff.
So they're showing with investments. So those are some of the shorter term. So they see, but at the real estate side, they saw like pedestrian, Patterson Street and this section of the east side of West Salem as that critical, like really high value floor front, ground floor office or retail. With improvements to these streets, you see those as kind of like the high traffic potential where you can be successful in building, like say like a mixed use building and have a ground floor retail. It's one of those things where they have to study some downtown where you have to know the market. One thing is I would love to see more a mixed use with a ground floor retail that if the market's saturated, unfortunately, so it's one of those things where they were looking at what it would cost for developing sites based on the rents that are in the same area. And they were just saying, but improvements and if I integrates the red areas on the ground floor are the best first investment to engage.
Is that Bartel?
Yeah, Bartel. And so this is the Mill Creek Corporate Center. It's also a renewal area established in 2005, quite a bit different from downtown or West Salem. If you were to take a trip out here, with urban renewal areas, they're created to remove light. And well, that statute ultimately that's what the purpose is. So when you go out here, you'd be, putting yourself, where's the light? Why is urban renewal investing in vacant land in Southeast Salem? And really what it comes down to is there's a different type of light when you're looking at properties here, and that's underutilization of land. The land use system in Oregon is great because you have these urban growth boundaries that protect natural resources and farmland, but it really is intended to urbanize that. The property within the urban growth boundary is intended to be utilized to the extent possible. So this area used to be Department of Corrections land, so state land. It's one of the benefits of being capital city next to state offices. They were anticipating over the years prisons that were there, having additional land resources that they had to house additional inmates. Well, that has shifted, and I think it's being shared by all communities in the state of Oregon. So that's beneficial to Salem, obviously. And it opens up this opportunity with state surplus land. So in this case, our office engaged the state offices and the legislature to see, this is around 2005. So it's before the recession. Land supply, for jobs, improving job growth and those things, that's challenging in all communities. I was just at the Oregon Business Summit this last week, and it's a common theme, has been as long as I've been going, that it's nice to have these protections, but it's a financial challenge to have shovel-ready land for businesses to move into. And so working with these partners, we realized, there's about 800 acre opportunity here. So we began to work on what type of projects, those projects to extend public infrastructure, private infrastructure, what's that look like, as far as like a master plan development, how would that work? Then to get those public and private investments, what does that look like cost-wise, and how are you going to fund it? So you start big and you start conceptualizing what it could look like, and then you get down to the reality of what tools do we have at our disposal to generate the funds to make the investments happen. So that's what happened with the establishment in 2005. Worked with the state to change this was all public service land, so we had to go through that whole comprehensive plan, zone change, had to create a subdivision. We had a phased subdivision where it has the lot configuration that we wanted to see. We made a list of what projects had happened. I think there were like 15 projects alone just for transportation. Because you have like the exterior, I have a different map that I'll show you, but there you have exterior improvements, is there like a county level transportation system that have to get to the city level with sidewalks and street trees and those kind of things. And then you have the internal networking you have to build as well. You have to move. In this case, there were a lot of water and sewer lines that just went, with engineers, why reroute it, just go straight. The problem is now that we're coming in to redevelop these sites, they have a key, like I'll show you in a second, we have a key property that just sold, and it has like the main water line for the distribution for the city of Salem goes through there, and it had like all like this spaghetti, like all this network of sewer and water lines cutting through prime development ready land. So then you have to like reroute that into the streets you're going to build and all that stuff.
Does its boundary include 22 and the overpass? Structure.
So it's just, just south of us, it's Highway 22 is the north there. So we set this up to develop north to south, and that's what we saw happen. Home Depot, Rapid Deployment Center is just there at that corner of Gordon and 22, basically. If you were coming, if you're going to I-5 over 22, you start to see all these buildings that are built. And you see like that orange tan color of Home Depot, and then see Amazon. So our first investment was to get that section built. So we built the Go Court and got we had wetlands all through here. So we had to mitigate the wetlands. And so we didn't have any funding at the renewal level, so we'd actually see private investment there, property tax value increase. So we had forgivable loans through the state. So we, based on employment, as soon as we use that to fund infrastructure, and we saw a business site there, and we would apply for forgiveness and pay off that loan. And Amazon obviously is built out there as well. There's a property, that Blink site just south of the bigger one is Amazon now. It's acquired by Pac Trust. We're not quite ready to build anything there yet, but go out there to see mounds of dirt staging. So hopefully by next construction season, we'll see that site built as well. As you go across Almsville becomes Lancaster. So we built improved Almsville, but also later have to do some improvements to Lancaster. If you walk through there, it is hazardous for some of those single family. They don't have sidewalks or anything like that. It gets the street curves a lot. So that's one of the things that we are going to do later. All these gray areas, you see it, the Amazon and the Home Depot, that gray, the kind of darker gray is a building footprint, the lighter gray is the parking around it. So when you see along Almsville to the southeast, those were all Pac Trust buildings too. So that's what we're seeing over time. It's nice to have large lots that, there just aren't that many in Oregon. So we put out there, businesses acquire them. There are pros and cons to it being warehouse distribution. There just aren't many like 30 to 100 acre sites that are manufacturing. I'm not familiar with them. So most of the larger lots have seen developed to a warehouse distribution type facility. But what we're seeing are the smaller lots. So ultimately, when it's all done, you'll probably see a mix of employment types and business types through there. They'll just be the larger lots will probably be warehouse distribution, the small will be, different trades. So Pac Trust built it looks like a line of buildings out there. It's 8 total buildings. They had a pretty neat model where with each 2 buildings, they share the truck access. So when they come in, you don't see really the trucks. It's really different than the warehouse side. It's all parking in the trucks and everything all around it. It's all you see them, trailers. It's a little bit different model of how Pac Trust set it up. So you have service parking around the outside, so for public or employees, but then the inside between the buildings is where it's intended for dock doors and truck. So we're now we had around 800 acres 700 total. Once it came down to it, 100 acres of it, we had to dedicate for mitigated wetlands for all these sites. We consolidated to like a central park area, if you will, that has a trail connecting the pieces. And that helps in two ways. One, to mitigate the wetlands, but also all these surrounding properties have been graded to where they don't have to build on site as much on site stormwater detention. They can just drain to the wetlands. They have to treat it and then drain to the wetlands. So the wetlands serve both the mitigation for the surrounding wetlands as well as help. Ultimately, what that does is by having the stormwater in that central area and not having to have it on site, they can do more with, like, they can build a bigger building ultimately on the site because they don't have to build the stormwater detention you have to otherwise. So we have around 200 acres left. To the south, that white section, it looks weird because that piece just sold. So that's going to be a Dollar General distribution center. That's been in the press, and they were wanting to start construction in August. They had some pieces as far as like getting their plat, acquiring the site and starting construction. I was just out there, I didn't see anything moving yet. So my guess is they probably wait for the rain season and as soon as they get started, they'll probably start in spring. Then the surrounding yellow pieces, those are the remaining roughly 200 acres that we have left to develop. Some of the current projects, just stay on the slide. So if you go out there, onto the highway was built, People Court. People Court is pretty heavily used right now. It wasn't really built to what it needed to be for the amount of truck traffic that's there. So we're looking at a dedicated right turn lane. That's what we're working on now. So that's one of the projects. It's dedicated right turn lane coming southeast out of southwest, sorry, out of Amazon. And then Truax Street was just built. So if you were out there, it's a new north-south connection. It's south off of Huntsville Highway. So it's a pretty significant investment. There's new buildings being constructed at that site to the east. Mill Creek Drive, it's off of Keeler Boulevard. That's right now dead-ended. That'll be built out. That's probably a next project. This next construction seasons to see that street built through to Deer Park. So if you're familiar with Corbin College, that's to the southeast there. So that road cut through to Deer Park, and then basically you can see that street across the street. That white section that will be Dollar General, they have to build just 6th Street, so the north-south Eternal Street, 6th Street, over there. And then we have kind of coming to the end of our projects. So we have really the costly projects to do. We have to improve all the surrounding roads. Oswald's already been improved, but Deer Park Drive is one of those. Again, it's like rural Oregon county type where I think they might have sidewalks out there, but they have ditches, they don't have street trees. All that stuff has to be reworked. Turner Road to go from Deer Park along Turner to Boulevard. And then Cooler has to be improved as well. So we'll have sidewalk street trees. So just Cooler is really expensive. We're putting that off to the very end. That's looking at what we possibly having everything wrapped up around selling real estate trends and financing continue. That's everything close to being done by that time.
Is there a plan of taking forward to 222 and connecting that with the next step there on 22?
There have been concerns about like that bridge crossing to take over 22. That's not part of our project. I don't know if that's something about something that. We have. There's more, not just Mill Creek, but there's private development happening to the southwest, but sorry to get to I-5, there's bridges that you can improve over Mill Creek, but Creek goes through there. So we would probably see something like that happen. I haven't seen anything as far as that goes. There've been talks, I know there've been, I think, mayors and political figures in the past referencing that, but I don't know that there's been any kind of concrete. I don't think I'll go see about it. I know members of the community have that. It'd be a huge investment. When you're there, I mean, your sort of rate is very high, so to be able to create something, drop down. It takes some land. Probably. Anyway. Pretty much what I have. While I'm on the slide, any questions about Creek Corporate Center? I'm happy to go back to West Salem. If you have questions.
I have 2 fixes for your problems.
Oh, fixes. Okay, awesome.
You mentioned rain sweep being such an eyesore. Murals really picking up steam these days. Just that's
That's the inside too. It's not useful on the inside.
no, no, but it still gets sorted out.
Yeah.
So,
That's
and this one might be the silly, but in light of what the TAP suggested, I think it's much more feasible to deal with getting traffic across the bridges of the river. I may get by. Just some documents.
Oh, yeah. The river, it's the river. A ferry takes too long, just a bunch of little gondolas going across the street in 5 minutes. That should be a fun one. It's surprising how fast I can do. I tipped I could do. I was surprised how fast it is.
Of the river reflect gondola recommendation.
Or, just take off the whole highway thing like that.
Yeah.
That's everything going, good.
And it wouldn't be to take it out. Again, that would just be to recognize it's urban and change its classification. Don't have it like this free, like 55 mile an hour drop speeds as you enter the city limits. So,
One of those costs less to get it.
yeah.
I had a question about the origin of that study. What exactly triggered the urban land use to getting their hands on the project or the exercise of putting together that?
So we reached out to them. So it's one of those resources. They had done something a little more extensive. I don't remember the time period, probably around 2006 or so. So we had already had experience with that. They looked at the South Waterfront site and looked at access and development for that area. And so internally, that was one of those things where we saw opportunities. Obviously, we're anticipating changes in the future. We have points of view on that. Just saw, why not engage a broader group? And this is the Northwest professional group here. Like I said, come in for a pretty intensive 3-month process around put this report together. So it was us replying for it. That's your question. We had experience with it, something a little bit more intensive. So we just reached out to them to say, be interested in this community.
Thank you.
So let's get forward. You're in Riverfront, that's kind of our focus. You've now seen West Salem, got an overview of Mill Creek. What did you learn?
You have 200 acres left for absorption at the Mill Creek area.
You were really paying attention. I'm down similar, very different, aren't they? Each one has its own unique situations of which, Tori has to deal with Mill Creek and the challenges with Mill Creek and the best role for the city to re-energize that, get jobs, create infrastructure for it. West Salem, look at the industrial piece. Look at that Second Street project and the lighted nest-ish thing there, owned by 2 property owners.
Yeah.
Interesting, opportunity and challenge at the same time. very different than what we have down here. So, you know, when those plans are created, they usually are created to address blight. They come up with the maximum indebtedness, and then they look at the projects that they anticipate in that particular URA. And the one that he was just referencing, South Waterfront, which is kind of our sister to the south, to the Boise. If you look at that, and it has very few projects. Daylighting the they don't have a board, they don't have a loan and grant program, they don't have anything. A lot of it was just focusing on the creek. And so they're all just so different. And you said you do 3 grants a year, right?
What's that?
3 grants a year?
3 grants, yeah.
I don't have less than one. Yeah, I have Shelley to help me now, but I'm thinking, did I just read this last week or something?
Yeah, right.
A lot more grants, but it's really been fun because historically Troy has been on my team because my focus has been downtown, but now I have a broader group that I'm working with, and I just salivate because I go over there and it's like, help me opportunities where I'm, you know, we're gonna build it out here. It's more historic here. He doesn't have those issues over there. So Tori is going to be my kind of right arm in working with the RPRQ or across the street, because I really want him to get that under his belt so that he gets some money to buy something over in West Salem and have it be catalytic, similar to what we wanted to hear. He doesn't have that in his little house of tools. So that's going to be a fun thing to work on, but everyone is just so different. That's what's just fascinating. And you know, you've been doing things that none of us really have to do, especially in the military. That's really a different skill set that you require. And obviously, you're at the end. So you know, thank you for that. But I think West Salem, just now at the beginning, if I was an investor, I'd be looking that's over at West Salem a little bit different now because there's going to be some opportunities there. It's just a matter of so thank you for giving us all this time.
I will add, we don't have the historical piece other than one property, but with this, I put it back on the slide. So that with the industrial uses that were there and the land not being utilized, they just kept building into our right of way. So when we came to them, we said, this is all encroaching, you guys, so you know, we're gonna be doing this. They're all for it, they want to make it happen too, but that effort to remove some of those encroachments, they found like oil-filled train cars. So it's one of those things, like we've had environmental things that we had to like purchasing call all state agencies and clean that up. But it's redevelopment of all kinds. It's challenging. You run into, it might look like great opportunities over there, but it's one of those things that industrial uses for decades, different thoughts around environmentalism. Now it's a big with as we make improvements. So it's challenging.
Tori, thanks for what you're doing. I had no idea that Elk Creek was part of your purview at all. And that's really exciting though. It's at 2027 is your hope.
Maybe. So maybe market could change. Right now, I think they're going pretty fast. There could be like little pieces, Fairview, urban rural areas, another industrial park piece, similar to Mill Creek. There's still lots being developed out there. So it could be that smaller lots develop over time, slower rate. So that could carry us into a period of time. But from a financial perspective or with projects, that's kind of the time.
Thanks, Tori. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Moving on to information reports. Our second is our ongoing discussion for board topic priorities.
So in October, I gave you a summary of your survey results. Then for the staff to try to make meeting beneficial to you and to understand what you're most interested in and work on. for staff. So in addition to maybe coming in with information and discussion points on the budget, at the same time, we're going to try to address what we identified as priorities. And so one of the things we're interested in projects in other areas. So check. Thank you, Tori. Get that one off my work list. Last time we had Captain Swing on the amphitheater. That was something, check. And we'll just keep, we'll invite her back. But again, I wanted to circle back because homelessness was your number one. And so I'm really interested in what you think our role could be with Riverfront or Parking Fund in that priority. Right now, how we have addressed that is certainly we bought UGM site, let them build a new facility up the road. That was huge. They increased their capacity significantly. We put quite a bit of money into this facility in that location to support. And we put money into Arches, which is right there across the street, that provides a lot of services. The security that we put into parking structures was safety. Over the years, we replaced all the lighting in the parking structures. In the parking structures. Historically, the board has not wanted to take Riverfront money to subsidize parking fund, and the only way we can is on capital projects. But again, because of where we are on the parking fund budget being so broken, this year in our budget, we have engaged a consultant, engineering consultant, to look at Marion, to take a look at the consequences to Marion Parkade due to the impacts from homelessness. The number of times we are power washing the stairwells has really impacted the masonry and the structural issues of that. So, but I'm just going to plant this seed. I really want that to also spin off of Marion contribute in a different way to the north part of that redevelopment that's going on. I don't think anybody was here when Jesse from Archive was on the board, but he had brought in and shared parking structure in another community that by lighting made it really an exciting contribution. And I personally think that Marion should contribute in some way other than just the way it is. It's down there, we're going to have redevelopment going in, it's going to be our future. So again, I don't want to say push or lobby, but I'm asking you to think about Marion Parkade other than just a parking structure, but could it contribute in another way, just aesthetically, to the look and feel and vibrancy of that part of town. So we're going to get the results of the engineering. I've asked facility to then come back and let me know what it would, what a cost estimate would be to address. Can we uncover those stairwells? Can we do things to make it safer, not as expensive to maintain, deal with the structural elements, but also, I guess it's more an architectural question, could it contribute in a way other than the way it does now? So again, when I come back and start talking about projects, that would have to be where would that have to come from? It's capital, where would, what budget? Riverfront. It would have to be Riverfront. Remember, Riverfront can pay for capital costs, and so could the parking fund. In a perfect world, the parking fund have enough money to maintain those parking garages in just the way we want, but it does not. So we're at a point again in the parking structures lives where we're going to have to look at Riverfront, pay for some of the capital costs. So again, that will just be one that, be ready for me to come in and say, hey, what do you think about using Riverfront to deal with Marion issues? But what were you guys thinking our role would be in addressing homelessness as one of your priorities. That's what we've done historically. Is there any that you need to think about and bring back in during budget discussion?
Task force, the city has. And how downtown is supporting that or not, that something that she could present to us, whether they're looking at projects and others. When they're looking at it's downtown. Is there, they have.
We've been,
Align.
yeah, okay, that's an interesting question. You know, Kristen and Counselor Kaiser did a homeless task force. Gretchen is kind of the point person for the city. She doesn't have a task force. I know that she has an internal meeting every Monday morning with a lot of city people because I attend those. And we just recently had her come to talk to us about the new team that she's created that can address with the police and with people to clean up, not on private property, but on public property, and they have done a lot with that team. And there's a location and a portal on the city's website that if you identify one of those, you can, you know, put it in there and that team will go out and address it. But I don't think she has any task force. And just so that you know, where's Aaron from the past? He was very sensitive 2 years ago in that we put a lot of money. We have arches and we had UGM and he pushed the board at that time and we raised it up the flagpole that if we were going to do something, then the board at that time, are we doing everything? So for example, there's that Coldwell Banker building by Arches. So if somebody came to us and said, hey, we really want, you know, we really want the Coldwell Banker building to be used to address homelessness. Aaron's comments were, okay, it takes it off the tax rolls because nonprofits and again, tax increment is generated from the property taxes. So if we're going to do that, what else could we do? Could we put housing on it? Could we, you know, let's not just think about creating that ground floor space for you to provide services, whoever you are, nonprofit, but is there more that we could do? So he pushed the board a lot at that time to, if Riverfront was being asked to participate in something like that, where it took it off the tax rolls and kind of went against what kind of the primary goal of our plan is, then are we getting everything that we want out of it? I think that politically, everybody feels like Riverfront has contributed. And I think that's why they turned around and said every board needs to be contributing in some way to homelessness. It can't all be here within Riverfront, especially with the impacts that was happening to the downtown businesses. You don't have to answer me today, but you know, I want to be prepared for what you might be thinking we should be thinking about to address homelessness, or it's just a matter of you just stay status quo with the things that you just continue to support the things that we've been doing. We're going to continue to look at Marion Parkade. We're going to continue to look at the parkades. We're going to continue to try to put security in there. We're going to try to do with what we have, what we have been doing at this time. But again, you know, think outside the box. Parking, and Derek mentioned parking. That was another one as high priority for you. That's been downer, you know, for years now because between the impacts from COVID and the permit revenue going down, and then the loss of, you know, Nordstrom's, you know, $30,000 a year parking tax. and use 30,000 a year parking tax. TJ Maxx, that's a huge hit because the majority of the businesses downtown pay the minimum, which is like $470 a year to support 3,000, spaces of parking. That's kind of the board needs to understand exactly the value of all the resources that a very little bit of money contributes for. So this board for years has been asking for consideration of paid parking because we know the parking tax, the district is a broken system. I think when something changes, we'll continue through the budget process to drive home. We are unable to do what the public wants us to do with the model. Yeah.
So related to that, we had, as a board, had sent something up the chain,
Yes.
haven't seen anything happen. As far as acknowledging receipt of or anything. Is
They
that-
don't, yeah, they don't acknowledge receipt of, but this is my understanding. We had the bond, new city manager, new mayor, new councilors. So I think because we had Councilor Stapleton here, and I think that she probably was very ready to put a motion on the floor, but the timing would have been bad timing because of all those things going on. So I have very high hopes that the dust is going to settle and January, because if you read the climate action plan, this is in the top 3, paid parking. So I'm hoping that they're going to want to move forward with looking at what they can do the climate action plan, and this will just be a moment where both what we, it's a good thing to do and it supports the climate action plan. Get it over.
So we're updating letter and sending it again with new information. If we have any support.
I think I referenced the climate action plan on your behalf in the last one. So again, the budgets would go in March. If for some reason the motion isn't taken and we're not given direction to move forward with that, then absolutely this board, I anticipate will do it. I think the other thing, just in anticipation of what we're talking about, when I bring in Riverfront budget discussion, I think I will be asking you to consider putting a line item or a project called funding to support climate action plan projects, because what that would do is we know if paid parking, what would we have to do? Where would the money come from for that?
It's a trick question.
Failing that might educate you. Okay, so tax increment money for capital projects, equipment, it could not pay for the operations of it. So the funding source to get pay stations in downtown would be Riverfront. So if we put a placeholder for projects to support climate action plan, we could then have an opportunity to back that up versus getting ahead of it, as making an assumption on behalf of council that they're going to do that. We wouldn't want to do that and say, oh, new parking technologies and put it in our thing. So again, just know, I'm somewhat strategizing with you right now that, anticipate me coming forward. And if you say, well, what are you thinking for that? Well, basically, this is what I would be thinking we could support, or something else that comes out that we don't know. And what we do in recognition as the district council and this board. So it goes to the budget committee. Yeah, so basically the parking fund budget, again, because you haven't had a cycle with us, but the budget manager will bring in a budget and will say, this is what your budget is this year. And then they'll make some assumptions on your parking tax revenue could go up this much. And it's the cost, because the increased cost to do all this extra cleaning and stuff that's been the killer in the parking lot. Less revenue, but so much more in maintenance costs. It's just. So he'll come in with that, and then, we'll all sit here like we do. And Derek will be in the room, and we'll say we have $50, after we pay for just what we need. And then there'll be, we give the $50 to Salem Main Street. And, then we'll say, okay, the $50 isn't gonna give them anything. And then we'll have this, moment again where we wish we had, a way to support the rest of what we'd like to do in downtown, the flower baskets, additional cleaning, events, promotions, all. So again, the goal of, the paid parking system would be, and I will, Derek, and in case I am not here, you guys need to push it forward too. Part of implementing that should be that there is the give back. So if you went on Pasadena's website, because they were free parking and they went to pay. If you pull it up, it basically says, this is what you get for paid parking revenue. Flower basket, blah, 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 events, promotions. It's just right there in your face, so everybody understands the benefit of contributing to what that's gonna be. That has to be part of the message, it really does, because obviously you have to pay to operate it and stuff like that, but you really need to give back. Especially here where you have not had. And where they've had to go without things, it seems like forever. Except for the great lights this year. So again, something to just remember in the messaging as a board that you wanted in a way that that piece is what is out there. That would be my recommendation.
To build on Kurt's question, to acknowledge the political dynamic, and respecting the process.
Yes.
How do we yell louder? Instead of getting all I mean, I just feel like we're at the mercy of this process, and it's just hitting our head up against the wall. Messaging in the PR, we understand that dynamic, but really we're at this point where it's almost feeling it's kind of discouraging. And I know you're a lot longer than us, only staff members, but it's hard to keep on fighting for something. I feel like you're being heard, even if there's political considerations. I feel like now is the best time to find money.
Also now have two council.
Yes. This would be my suggestion. I am Aaron and Vincenzo, the chair and vice chair, asked for a meeting with the mayor at that time. But because Stapleton has already knows and is very supportive of the change of the parking system. She's made that very clear. I don't want to tell you what to do, but there might be some value in the chair and vice chair asking for a meeting to check in with her, because she was going to take it forward before. How all these things that we did, to see if there was anything she needed or what she might be as a time to do that.
I think we might do that.
Again, and at the same time, I always continue to ask, just because I need to be prepared. And whenever that comes, there's going to be all the questions: how much you think it's going to cost, how long would it take? And so we're constantly backside. We're ready for that. If they bring it to us, we're ready.
I want to be cognizant of everybody's time too. I think that's our 1:30 time. But just really quickly before we all adjourn, see the buildings coming down. What is the executive summary update across the street from UVM staffs?
Well, to kind of piggyback off of Charles' comment about mural, we took the north side down. There was a mural on the building. On the inside of that building, because you know, that whole gym is a combination of buildings, so that was kind of cool about it, that obviously it's gone now. But that was a surprise, and they're on track for the event by January.
Wow.
So I don't wanna ruin what's going on. It's hard for me to look over there because I'm gonna get excited, but it didn't happen. So that's
No Berry Rail covers.
not. But they're not going underground. That's not part of the scope. I don't want to. That opens. Just leave it.
Oh, I'm treasure.
I You saw my scope. Do not dig a hole. Leave the basement, you leave anything that's dug down, open, and just don't dig it. Don't dig it. It's very excited, but to answer your question about meals, because that was the first thing I thought of when I was talking to Tori. I think it's an everybody thing. There's quite a process for that. And it's an easement. Once you go through staff and they approve what your art's going to be, then you give an easement to the city for that, because it's art. And then you pay to keep it up as the property owner for 8 years. So I think it'd be a very tough sell.
Yeah, but it's a temporary, it's gonna get a variance.
We're hoping that-
Coming down.
We want something to go up in the city's budget.
All that Banksy guy, yeah, you.
Anyway, I just want you to know that it's
It takes forever.
big years. But it does look like it needs that.
It has to be on all walls. It's quite visible right there.
Thank
Like
you.
3D rolls.
It's into the year, so thank you all of you. Support and holidays. See.
Sure. Thanks, everybody. All right, let's adjourn.
We're asking a lot of vice chairs and good questions there.
Yeah.
You might need to